So we have seen today a number of different approaches towards working with communities, ranging from trying to get involved in existing, I would say, generic open source communities, speaking about getting your stuff mainstream in the products themselves. And at the other side, a number of initiatives where specific, I would say specific public administration needs are solved by user communities who come together and say, we have the same problem, let us try to solve it together, either based around a link between a product and a number of needs, or purely based on a number of needs. We also have seen that various of those communities, especially user communities, tend to be relatively local. And there were various questions in, can we open this up to the European level, but we're not quite sure if that's the right way to going, to have groups as big as possible, because as just said, maybe bigger communities are not always more effective. So we have a number of things. Now, the purpose of the panel is, of course, that you can confront different speakers with contradicting arguments and ask, why did he have said this, or why did he have said so? There are a few practical problems. The first one is that from here on the podium, it's impossible to see into the room. I don't even know if there's still anybody around. So I have asked Sabi, who was your host for most of the day, to be down with you, and he will have the regie. So it's he who will decide who can speak and who cannot speak. If you have a statement to make it a short statement. If you have a comment to make it a short comment. If you have a question to make it a short question, because we have only 20 minutes in total. If you want a specific speaker to answer, then say so. If it's a more general question, I will first look to my right for a volunteer, and if I don't find a volunteer, I will need to nominate one. Zabi, we had here a nice little penguin for the first question. So, let's go.
First one for a penguin. It's not a bee, it's not an ozone bee, I know, but still. Okay, I hope that I could take it home, having a question of my own, but...
Sabi is disappearing somewhere in the back.
Bonjour, hello. Ici c'est la technique. J'aurais une petite question à poser pour ces messieurs. À quand des logiciels de traitement vidéo puissants sur Linux?
Okay, so I don't know if there's any volunteer in this room for this question, because the question was about powerful tools to work with video under Linux. I'm afraid we are not directly video editing experts. So yes, you have won the penguin, but I'm afraid we can't answer your question. So
Merci.
Next one.
Another question, or I have my... Is it working? Another question, perhaps? Okay, I have another question. Then I will take home. I will take it to the commission. We've been speaking about, I mean, there were many talks about, there's one speaker said that it's very important to get international at the very beginning of your project. Others said that, I mean, from experiences from other presentations, we saw that you can have a perfectly healthy community just being staying local. So what is your viewpoint in terms of different kind of open source projects, whether it be development projects or just simply using an open source product? Is it really crucial to go international and to find international community from the very beginning? Cora, you either choose someone or this is a generic question.
Well, it's a generic question. Maybe some people here have a few words to say. Let's start with Brit. Brit, you were saying you were thinking about making the English translation, which I assume is a step to go international. What was your rationale for doing so? Or what is your rationale for doing so? There are mics on the tables. I'm afraid you need to take them. They should work normally.
Works. Yeah. We would like to make an English version of FreeComport because we want more customers to use the solution, because then we get benefits back later on, and then we can share the code and we can share the knowledge about how to use FreeComport in the best way, and then we gain access to a network outside Norway, which I think would be quite essential for if we are going to grow more.
Thank you. This morning also Pedro says that, well, yes, international is good, but he was a little bit afraid of the overhead because, okay, it's becoming difficult to meet physically. It's becoming more difficult to speak because you need to speak in other languages than your own language. Pedro, what is your feeling hearing the various experiences today?
Well, I think that it depends on the project you are dealing with. I mean, in our case, and I'm talking about our own project, HISAL, it is targeted to a very reduced audience. I mean, it's targeted to local administrations, mainly in the Galician region, which have a legal administrative environment which maybe cannot be exported to other places. So in the case of our project, we don't feel that is even interesting internationalizing it. In the case of the Synergias network, it's a little bit different because as somebody stated this morning, this experience is maybe interesting for people outside Spain, and maybe internationalizing our project. But we have to change the way how we manage the network, and we have to think in other ways of managing and of interacting between the members of the network before we do so. So maybe in other kinds of projects, as that of the Andalusian community, internationalization is just a need also. So,
okay, thank you. Johan, you wanted to add something to that?
When I have talked about internationalization, I was thinking not in translating into many different languages, but in enabling the tools, the provisions in the code to be translated easily into different languages. In the sense they use the term internationalization in GNOME or in Debian or in other free software projects, to put apart all the literals, all the text strings from the code in order to have it translated by people that don't know a word about code, by volunteers, like it's done in the Launchpad system of Ubuntu, or by more professionalized translators that are using Debian, for example.
Thank you. Okay, in the meantime, I assume many more people have entered the room. Are there additional questions? I hear a yes.
Yes, hello. Mr. Grasner has mentioned earlier that in Austria schools will have to use open source software increasingly in the future. because the government will no longer finance proprietary licenses. And I was wondering if he thinks that this is the right way, or if schools, if it's the right way for schools to be pressured, basically, to use open source software by no longer having the possibility to save on licensing. Is that clear?
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think it's a political question. You have to make a decision. On one side, you have open source products. On the other side, you have closed source products. So you have to make a basic political decision. What do you want? If you opt for closed source products, that means dependency on a private monopoly based in the USA. If you want open source products, that means you want thriving communities across the EU, you want flexibility, you want freedom. So I think the political decision which was made in Austria was a correct one. And I see it as a judge too. I'm a professor and a judge. I have two jobs, and in the court system, in the justice system, as I told, we switched completely to openoffice.org, and the migration was very smooth. We offered one-day courses, which were attended by secretaries, judges, public prosecutors. There were no worries at all, and the migration ran seamlessly and smoothly. And we save lots and lots of money, which we can use for better purposes. So I chatted with Mark Shuttleworth because I was in South Africa when South Africa switched from apartheid to multi-party democracy, and I was invited as a foreign expert to the University of Pretoria. At that time, they had only two official languages, English and Afrikaans, and there were lots and lots of worries. What will happen? We have to accommodate all African languages, and I said, okay, do it, because pluralism is necessary. You will avoid maybe a civil war, you will avoid unrest, and a group of South African politicians went to Brussels to see what the costs are of our system of having more than 20 official languages. And to be honest, every citizen of the EU pays 1 cup of coffee for this system of having more than 20 official languages. So I think it's better for public administrations to opt for open source products. I don't think it's a pressure, because it's a policy decision which is supported by the pupils themselves. An increasing number of students have Linux netbooks, Linux laptops, they have dual boot installations, and I think it's necessary to have a format which is open and which is recognized. And as you know, OpenOffice got its format recognized internationally. So that's a sound political decision, and neither the pupils nor the teachers think that it's a political pressure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have time for one more question. Just you like to add, then I first give you the opportunity to add.
Nowadays, I'm not in local communities anymore, but in education in Holland. And what I notice is that pupils, students, and the organizations of education are provided with Microsoft software for free. So that's it will be very hard for me and for other people to convince the educational the schools to use open source software because they can use Microsoft products for free.
Okay, I propose we don't go into a lengthy discussion on this topic on this stage here. Like I said, it's time for one more question. Okay, Sabi, you've been silent most of the day, so post your last question.
I had my coffee, I didn't have a big lunch. So another question is in terms of interacting with the open source community when you contribute bad code into the open source community. What were the biggest obstacles of doing this? Did you meet legal obstacles with your own legal department? Was it technically difficult? Did you have difficulties with the open source community? For example, we heard from one speaker that actually it was very hard to upstream one addition to the core source code. What were your experiences with contributing back as a public administration? Because then for a private company, probably things are easier.
Okay, I don't know if private companies, if they're big companies, are easier than administrations. But I've said to Sabi, if we want to give back one patch to an open source product, we probably need to go to an administrative procedure that will take maybe between 1 and 2 years before we can do it. So what are your experiences and your suggestions on that one? Johan.
Our experience is that there are no legal problems, because when we make the tender for obtaining the code that we are willing to contribute, we establish that the intellectual property or exploitation rights is the term used in the Spanish legal frame, belongs to our administration. So we are the owners, not the author, but the owners of the code, so we can contribute it. The main problems are in getting the trust from the receiver of the code, from the upstream projects. And sometimes we have long development cycles, so we start developing the code and we arrive late to contribute it to the project, because the project has moved at a faster pace than our own project. That's especially true in the case of software that depends on basic libraries of the system, that depends on the kernel itself, that moves quite quickly. The personal relationships with the representatives of the community is very important. When you have a person that is well known in the free software community and he is acting or she is acting as a bridge between the administration and the project, things are much easier.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who wants to add something to that? Or is there?
Our experience is quite similar in that we own the copyright, the intellectual property rights to anything we either write or buy in. However, this then comes into what kind of license you're trying to contribute back to. If it's a GPL, that's relatively straightforward because they allow you to retain that kind of copyright on the code you're putting in. There are some projects we've worked on with variations of the Mozilla license where the central, I suppose, the company that's running the product have insisted that they actually own all of the IPR rights, and I would find myself in a similar position to my colleague on my left, and it's almost getting the council to agree to give up IPR rights, even if it's on like 10 lines of code, would involve going through an entire bureaucratic procedure. And so the only way that we can deal with that kind of situation is say, well, if you want the code, it's there, but we can't actually give up those rights. And so far, I mean, not all of the code, but where the code's been deemed as useful, then generally speaking, there's an arrangement made, an addendum to that original Mozilla license.
Okay, thanks. I'm afraid we come to the end of this IDABC session on the power of communities. I wish to thank Zabi and Clementine, who have put this session together, and I think have found a very good lineup of speakers who really, out of their own experience, can tell what to be done and how to do things. And I think have proven that public administrations at various levels, because some were about more generic middleware type tools or generic solutions, and others were speaking about specific needs of public administrations, and that there are various ways to create or to become part of open source communities. And as I said this morning during the panel discussion, I believe that that is the real value added of open source in public administrations. It's to work together between public administrations and between and with other stakeholders to solve the specific problems of public administrations, and to do that in the most effective way, making best use of the taxpayers' money. I thank the speakers, I thank the interpreters who have taken care of the French-English translation, and now we give the room again to the organizers of the Open World Forum, who were so nice to give the room most of the day to us. So in a couple of minutes here we'll start the closing session of the Open World Forum, and I'm sure you're still all very welcome, although I know Friday evening in Paris it's not easy. Thank you very much.